While the original members of Band Aid had hoped to heal the world with their charity anthem, many of them have faced profound personal tragedies in the years since its release. The 1984 version of Do They Know It's Christmas, written by Sir Bob Geldof and Midge Ure, remains a seasonal staple, but its stars have endured heartbreaking losses. Sir Bob Geldof suffered the loss of his wife Paula Yates to a drug overdose in 2000, followed by the tragic death of his daughter Peaches from a similar fate in 2014. George Michael, who had already endured the loss of his first love to the AIDS epidemic, spiraled into addiction and passed away on Christmas Day in 2016. Meanwhile, Paul Young has experienced personal grief after his wife's affair led to the birth of another man's child before her untimely death. These heart-wrenching events have cast a shadow over the Band Aid legacy. Here, we delve into the Band Aid curse and how the original band members' lives have been blighted by tragedy in the years since. 1. Phil Collins, devastating spinal cord injury and 3 marriage breakdowns. Phil Collins, known for his legendary drum solos with Genesis, has faced immense physical and personal challenges in recent years. A tragic spinal injury, resulting from years of drumming, has left the 73-year-old unable to play his beloved instrument. In 2009, Collins revealed that a surgery to repair dislocated vertebrae in his neck, sustained during a 2007 Genesis tour, caused him to lose feeling in his fingers. As a result, he could no longer properly hold drumsticks, even resorting to taping them to his hands to continue playing despite the pain. The loss of his drumming ability was compounded by depression, and Collins admitted in 2010 that he had considered suicide but was held back by thoughts of his children. His health troubles didn't end there. Following a fall in 2017, he underwent back surgery, which resulted in long-term mobility issues. That year, Collins also revealed he had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and had to undergo hyperbaric treatment for a diabetic foot abscess. In addition to his health struggles, Collins has endured 3 failed marriages. His relationship with his second wife, Orianne Sevi, ended in 2008 amid his alcohol-fueled depression. Sevi later claimed she felt trapped in a golden cage during their marriage. Despite their bitter divorce, Collins and Sevi briefly reconciled in 2016, with her describing their renewed relationship as profoundly and deeply in love. Despite these personal and physical setbacks, Collins continues to cope with his challenges, navigating a difficult life both professionally and privately. 2. Sir Bob Geldof, devastating loss of mother, wife and daughter. Sir Bob Geldof rose to fame in the 1970s as the lead singer of the Boomtown Rats, later becoming known for his humanitarian efforts through Band Aid and Live Aid. Yet, his life has been marked by a series of profound losses. When Geldof was just 6, his mother, Evelyn, passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage at 41. In 1976, Geldof began dating TV presenter Paula Yates. They married a decade later and had 3 daughters, Fifi, Peaches, and Pixie. However, the marriage unraveled in the 1990s, in part due to Yates' affair with INXS frontman Michael Hutchence, whom she left Geldof for in 1995. Yates and Hutchence welcomed a daughter, Tiger Lily, in 1996. Tragedy struck the following year when Hutchence died in his Sydney hotel room. Though the death was officially ruled a suicide, Yates believed it was accidental, related to a sexual practice the couple had engaged in together. Sadly, Yates herself died in 2000 from an accidental heroin overdose at her home in Notting Hill, leaving behind 4-year-old Tiger Lily, who was adopted by Geldof. In 2014, tragedy struck again when Geldof's second daughter, Peaches, died of a heroin overdose, leaving behind her 2 young sons, Ostala and Phaedra, and her husband, Thomas Cohen. Investigators found that Peaches had been attempting to overcome her addiction and had been clean for 5 months before relapsing. Her husband reported she had hidden heroin in their loft and had relapsed in February. The coroner confirmed that Peaches' overdose was accidental. Months later, Geldof opened up about his intolerable grief, sharing his hope that his grandchildren could live a more private life, away from the intense media scrutiny his family had endured. Reflecting further, he admitted he had always feared losing Peaches and now feels her presence every day. 3. George Michael, never got over loss of first love. George Michael's first love, Brazilian designer Anselmo Felipe, deeply impacted his life, leaving an emotional mark he never fully moved past. Their relationship began when George spotted Anselmo in the crowd during his Rock in Rio concert in 1991. Drawn to him instantly, George found himself captivated, eventually requesting an introduction. In a later interview, he recalled how meeting Anselmo changed him entirely, marking the first time he felt a selfless, joyful love. George explained that Anselmo helped him embrace his sexuality, saying that it's easier to be proud of one's identity when it's tied to love and happiness. However, just as their bond deepened, George's joy turned to fear when Anselmo developed symptoms that prompted him to take an HIV test while they were together in Los Angeles. Anxiety gripped George as he awaited the diagnosis, and his fears were confirmed when Anselmo disclosed his HIV-positive status shortly after the new year. Anselmo's health deteriorated, and despite their time together, he tragically passed away in 1993 at the age of 33. George described the heartbreak of losing him, admitting that years later, the memory of Anselmo still brought him to tears. Following Anselmo's death, George privately struggled with grief, which was compounded when his mother was diagnosed with cancer. The grief of losing his partner, followed by his mother's death, left George battling depression and a persistent fear of further loss. 5 years after Anselmo's death, George publicly came out as gay and became a dedicated advocate for HIV/AIDS awareness, supporting related charities. Despite his advocacy and career success, George continued to struggle with mental health and substance abuse issues in later years. His life was tragically cut short when he passed away from heart disease on Christmas Day in 2016, discovered by his then-partner Fadi Fawaz. Reflecting on his relationship with Anselmo, George often called him his savior, the one who showed him the joy of genuine companionship, an experience that profoundly shaped his life and legacy. 4. Midge Ure, alcoholism struggles. In 1984, Midge Ure joined forces with Sir Bob Geldof to create Band-Aid, co-writing the iconic charity single Do They Know It's Christmas? The song became the second best-selling record in UK chart history, later being re-released in 2004 and 2014 with newer artists. While Ure's work with Band-Aid brought immense success, the Scottish musician has openly shared his personal struggles with alcohol. Ure's battle with heavy drinking worsened after the loss of his father in 2001, a traumatic experience that he found difficult to manage. In a 2014 interview with BBC Radio Manchester, he described how his grief and stress became unmanageable, admitting that he kind of fell over for a little bit. He reflected on the ease with which trauma can push a person into destructive behavior, emphasizing that emotional, financial, and social pressures leave everyone vulnerable to such challenges. Beyond Band-Aid, Ure achieved fame with the band Ultravox and with Visage, a group he co-founded with Steve Strange, becoming a prominent figure in the 1980s music scene. As a father to 4 daughters, 1 with his first wife, Annabelle Giles, and 3 with his second wife, Sheridan Forbes, Ure acknowledges that his family plays a crucial role in keeping him grounded. In previous interviews, he's discussed how the ever-present temptation to drink is something he constantly manages. However, it's the thought of his family's pain that ultimately stops him from giving in. The horrible thing about addiction is you think it is only harming you, but it is not, he shared. Although Ure acknowledges that the desire to drink remains, he describes it as a monkey on your shoulder that he continues to overcome for the sake of his family. His resilience has allowed him to stay focused on both his career and his loved ones, finding strength in his journey to stay sober. 5. Paul Young, wife had son with another man before brain cancer death. When Paul Young joined Band-Aid, he was at the peak of his solo career after parting ways with his band, the Q-Tips. During this time, he met Stacy Smith while filming the video for his 1983 hit Come Back and Stay. Their relationship was known for its volatility, marked by a temporary split when Stacy dated stuntman Eddie Kidd. Despite their ups and downs, the couple married in 1987 and welcomed their first child, Levi, that same year, followed by daughters Layla and Grady in 1994 and 1996. After nearly 20 years of marriage, Paul and Stacy briefly separated in 2006, following Stacy's admission of an affair with Israeli businessman Elon Slazenger. Around this time, Paul's career was in decline, and he faced significant financial losses from a failed property investment. Remarkably, Paul maintained a positive outlook, even working as a chef in a restaurant run by Stacy and her new partner. During the separation, Stacy became pregnant with Elon's child. Nevertheless, Paul reconciled with Stacy, ultimately adopting her son, Jude. Reflecting on the period, Paul emphasized their bond, saying, "Stacy was my mate when we got married, so why shouldn't she still be my mate?" In a later interview, he described their household as a blended family, with Jude's biological father playing a partial role in his life. In 2016, as they celebrated their 30th anniversary and Paul's 60th birthday, Stacy received a devastating brain cancer diagnosis. She passed away peacefully 2 years later, surrounded by loved ones. Following her death, Paul shared on This Morning that his family aimed to channel their grief into something positive, adding, "That's what she was proudest of." In early 2024, Paul married fiancée Lorna Young, though his children chose not to attend. A family friend explained that they were still grieving their mother's loss, finding it too painful to witness their father's remarriage. Paul and Lorna were understanding of their decision, prioritizing the children's need for healing. 6. Sting lost both parents in a year. For years after the success of Band-Aid, Sting, the iconic frontman of the Police, faced a profound personal tragedy as both his parents, Audrey and Ernest, died of cancer within months of each other. Despite his fame, Sting chose not to attend their funerals in time and where to avoid drawing unwanted public attention. The singer has alluded to his complex relationship with his parents in various interviews, revealing a particular strain with his father. In a 2007 lyric collection, Sting confessed, "His death hit me harder than I'd imagined possible," a testament to the conflicted feelings he harbored. In his memoir Broken Music, Sting offered insights into his family dynamics, detailing how his mother, a teenager at the time, married his father, a dashing soldier fresh out of the army. He recalled the pain of discovering his mother's affair with one of his father's employees, a moment that left him grappling with feelings of blame and confusion, with no one to reassure him. In a 2003 interview with the Irish Times, Sting reflected on his decision to skip the funerals, admitting he may have underestimated the importance of mourning. He shared, "I thought I'd said goodbye to them, which was important, but the actual interring of the remains and the sharing of that with the family, I didn't take that seriously. I thought, I'll just get on with work. I was deeply afraid. Running away is what I've always done." A year later, in an interview with the Sunday Independent, he spoke about his transformation from an unhappy child to a more content adult. He shared, "I think my life has progressed from being a very unhappy child to where I am now. I am happier now than I've ever been." Although driven by a fierce ambition to succeed and be the best, Sting's journey reflects an evolution toward peace and fulfillment. 7. Rick Parfitt died of sepsis after being treated awfully by Status Quo. Rick Parfitt, famed guitarist and co-founder of Status Quo, lived the stereotypical rock and roll lifestyle throughout the band's prime. During the 1970s and 80s, Parfitt's daily routine often included whiskey, red wine for breakfast, and up to 30 cigarettes a day. He was known for his wild behavior, once even falling off the stage while heavily intoxicated during one of the band's many Top of the Pops performances, pulling the drummer with him. Reflecting on this era, Parfitt admitted he embraced the lifestyle wholeheartedly, often disappearing for benders that lasted days and estimating he spent around £1.7 million on hard drugs. Parfitt's turbulent life ultimately took a toll on his health. On Christmas Eve 2016, he passed away in a hospital in Marbella, Spain, after contracting sepsis. Following his death, Parfitt's son, Rick Parfitt Jr., expressed anger at how he believed his father was treated by his Status Quo bandmates in his final months. In a tweet shortly after his father's passing, Parfitt Jr. indicated that his father's bandmates showed him little recognition, referencing a band comeback concert in Estonia where his absence was hardly acknowledged. "Dad was treated awfully," he wrote, "you don't know what I know." Simon Porter, the band's manager, responded publicly to these claims, sharing that both he and the band were extremely surprised and disappointed by Parfitt Jr.'s comments. Porter defended the band, suggesting that they had acted with care and respect during the difficult period leading up to Parfitt's death when he could no longer tour. Nevertheless, the comments cast a shadow over Parfitt's legacy, hinting at discord within the band in his final years. 8. Marilyn descended into heroin addiction after losing love of his life Gavin Rossdale. After being invited to join Band Aid as one of 40 participating artists, Peter Robinson, better known by his stage name Marilyn, seemed poised for a promising future. Known for his 1983 hit Calling Your Name, Marilyn's career could have reached new heights, but instead, he spiraled into a difficult period, spending the next 2 decades battling heroin addiction. In a candid 2014 interview with the Mirror, Marilyn shared how, following his Band Aid experience, his life unraveled. He endured a nervous breakdown and lost nearly everything, resorting to selling his jewelry and belongings. Living off a modest income support of about £50 a week, Marilyn admitted to doing as many drugs as he could access to cope with his struggles. This turbulent period brought him to court in 1986 on heroin charges, though they were dismissed due to insufficient evidence. In the mid-1990s, Marilyn's close friendship with Boy George became a topic of public interest when George alleged in his autobiography, Take It Like a Man, that Marilyn had a romantic relationship with Gavin Rossdale, the Bush frontman. Although Rossdale initially denied the affair, Marilyn openly discussed it and dedicated his 2003 single Hold On Tight to Rossdale. He later described Rossdale as the love of my life, explaining that their 5-year relationship felt like 40 years to him. Marilyn described feeling immense pressure to keep the relationship hidden, despite it being against his true nature, as Rossdale was gaining fame in America and didn't want the details of his personal life exposed in the media. In 2012, Rossdale finally acknowledged the relationship in an interview with the Evening Standard, admitting he had initially denied it to avoid unwanted media attention, particularly as his band Bush was taking off. He felt addressing the relationship might detract from his career, explaining, "I didn't want it to be part of it." Reflecting on this, Marilyn expressed mixed emotions about having had to suppress such a significant part of his life, saying he had reluctantly agreed to hide the truth, going against every grain of his being. Though Marilyn's career never reached the heights many had expected, his story reveals the personal battles that can sometimes unfold behind public success. 9. Martin Kemp, 10 Years to Live. When Martin Kemp joined Band Aid, he was part of Spandau Ballet, one of the UK's most popular bands. Spandau Ballet went on to produce music until 1990 when internal conflicts over song royalties led to their split. 5 years later, Kemp's life took a dramatic turn when he was diagnosed with 2 brain tumors, requiring both surgery and radiotherapy. In 2009, Kemp described the ordeal, explaining that the first tumor was the size of a squashed grapefruit, while the second, more concerning tumor, rested deeper in his brain. His wife, Shirley, sought out a specialist who used early gamma knife technology, which helped shrink the tumor. Though the process left him initially believing he was close to death, Kemp later adopted a perspective of gratitude, viewing every day as an unexpected gift. The iconic charity track Do They Know It's Christmas?, created in 1984 by Sir Bob Geldof and Midge Ure to raise funds for famine relief in Ethiopia, has endured across generations. In celebration of the track's 40th anniversary, a new release called the 2024 Ultimate Mix will combine recordings from various eras using advanced production techniques by Trevor Horn. This remix, launching on November 25th, will seamlessly blend past and present voices, including a young Sting with Ed Sheeran, Boy George with Sam Smith, and George Michael alongside Harry Styles. It will also feature notable artists like Paul McCartney, Chris Martin, Rita Ora, and Seal, pairing veteran musicians with modern stars in a powerful intergenerational collaboration. The original Do They Know It's Christmas? Gathered many of the biggest stars of the 1980s, including George Michael, Boy George, and Spandau Ballet. A second rendition was released in 2004 with artists like Busted, Robbie Williams, and Snow Patrol, while a 2014 version featured One Direction, Ollie Murs, and Paloma Faith, with some lyrics updated to reflect its mission to support Ebola relief efforts in Africa. The latest mix promises to carry forward Band Aid's legacy of global goodwill, uniting voices across time and bringing a refreshed take on a beloved anthem. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more updates on celebrity deaths and news updates.